Hey guys, I'm Jack Fossett, and welcome to this review of the Fender Vintage Noiseless pickups, specifically in context of the wiring that goes along with them. So Fender Vintage Noiseless pickups, there's a lot of debate about these pickups online. This is the classic Vintage Noiseless set. It's not the hot vintage, just regular Vintage Noiseless, which are technically humbuckers. Now, first of all, if they're good enough for Eric Clapton, they're good enough for you. That being said, I think you need to understand where they sit sonically in order to properly use them. Now, when I got these pickups, I installed them with the included wiring, which were CTS 1 meg pots. It also had a treble bleed circuit, and it came with a ceramic cap. I think I didn't use the ceramic cap because I have standards. Now, I thought they sounded good, but they didn't sound great. With that wiring, there was something about it that was just, it was almost like they were trying too hard to push it over the fact that it was a humbucker. It's like, let's make it super bright, you know, with the pots. So the 1 meg, I thought they were a bit much, and I didn't really care for how the 1 meg sounded. They were just a little too brittle and just a little too bright for my taste. Now, I like Bourns pots better than CTS pots anyway. So I've collaborated with Gary at Tone Man Guitar and come up with this wiring harness for Vintage Noiseless pickups. Now the wiring harness in this has 500K Bourns pots and a 0.1 UF paper and oil capacitor. Of course, along with the 5-way switch and everything. And I think that this really brings these pickups to life. So I think the 500K, if you don't know, most single coil Strat pickups are going to have 250K pots. So the 500K pots gives it, it opens it up a bit more than your standard Strat ones, but not so much as the 1 meg. And the character is just, I think this makes it sound like regular Strat pickups. And you get a lot of their beautiful, kind of clear bell-like character. I think they sound really, really great now, because I was actually, with the 1 meg pots, was kind of like, nah, I don't know if I'm going to keep these or not. You know, I might pull these out and get different pickups, because I just wasn't crazy about the way that they sounded. Now, with the 500K pots and the Tone Man wiring harness, I think I'm going to keep these pickups in here, because now they kind of have the best of both worlds. So they are noiseless, they've got great Strat character, but they're not that sort of overly bright, overly brittle. They just sort of sit and hit that sweet spot, which is really great. Now, for this video, I am not doing a comparison, and there's a few reasons for that. I will tell you that I have another video, a demo video of Fender Vintage Noiseless pickups in the same guitar. It was with the old wiring. You can certainly go back to that video for reference if you want to kind of get an idea. The reason that I'm not doing a comparison, number one, the difference we're talking about is pretty subtle, and it doesn't come across as much necessarily in a YouTube video. That being said, it's too easy to get worked up over really, really minor things. And so what I wanted to do for this video is just kind of show you, hey, this is what they sound like with 500K pots. There's plenty of other videos out there with different amps and different things. And, you know, in order to change everything, I'm changing strings. I happened to change the tuners when I changed it out. And then I thought, oh, well, I can't do the comparison now because, you know, a little bit of weight in the middle in the headstock, that changes the tone a subtle amount, which subtly, you know, when we're talking about all these little subtle differences. And then there's going to be someone who comes out of the woodwork and is like, the microphone was off a 1/16 of an inch. That completely changes the tone. You might as well be playing the tuba. You know who you are. But in all seriousness, I just wanted to focus in this video on how good these sound with this type of wiring harness in it, as opposed to doing a back and forth, and a tiny difference here, tiny difference there. Again, you can go check my other video in this guitar for reference, or, you know, numerous other videos that out across the web that I'm sure have the 1 meg, you know, included wiring with it. I think for those of you who are kind of fantasizing about having the noiseless pickups, but you're just not entirely sure if they're gonna sit, you know, there's a lot of stuff on the intergoogles about, you know, oh, well, those aren't real Strat pickups and they sound dead and they sound lifeless and everything. Well, I submit that this guitar set up the way that it is does not sound lifeless. I think that these pickups sound great with this wiring. And what this guitar is, by the way, is this is a 2008 Fender American Standard Stratocaster that has a few different modifications. I switched it, since it's got a maple board, I switched it to kind of 50s styling. So I got this, it was actually a beveled single ply pickguard that I kind of hand carved the edges on to make it a little bit more rolled and look a little less Fisher Price. And on the headstock, I switched over to vintage style tuners with the really old fashioned 1950s style round string tree. Other than that, that and the pickups and the wiring and everything, the bridges stock is, I didn't really do much else to the guitar. So that's what the guitar is, and that's how this sounds in this guitar. So I hope this is helpful to any of you who are in the market for vintage noiseless pickups, to see if this is something that you might like. I'm Jack Fossett. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.